Hello and welcome to Niche Snacks. This is a new channel that I just made. My name's Matt, and today we're going to be brewing a deck, the Mycotyrant. He is an XX with trample. He costs 1, a black and a green, and the Mycotyrant's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control that are fungi and or saprolines. At the beginning of your end step, you create X 1/1 black fungus creature tokens with this creature can't block, where X is the number of times you descended this turn. Within this video, I've already compiled a big old pile of cards, and we're going to edit them down into a functional deck. I personally like to start with the lands. So we have a bunch of non-basics here, and I like to separate them out into lands that come into play tapped and lands that don't come into play tapped. It's always good to keep your lands down to ones that don't come into play tapped, because mana right now is better than mana later. And if you'll notice, I also have a couple proxies floating around in here. I am one that is okay with proxies. If you don't like them, I get it, but I think they're useful, especially if you're playing a little bit of an underpowered deck, which I'm not 100% sure if this is going to end up like that, but it might. Right. So, and if you notice, I only have 2 basics picked out, and that's because part of the deck strategy is going to be with Hermit Druid, which I will have a picture of right now. 10 tapped lands. That's kind of a lot, but let's see how many other lands we've got first. 28 other lands. That leaves us 38, which really we're probably gonna I like to run anywhere between 33 and 36 lands, so we gotta cut a couple. Let's see, probably about 3 or so. The way I'm thinking this deck is going to play out, in that case, probably going to be looking up more at some of these colorless lands, because we do want to have enough colors to play our spells. Let's cut a Strip Mine and probably the Encroaching Wastes. I'm not too worried about other players' lands in this deck. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's really going to hose a graveyard strategy with lands. Nothing we really need to be scared of. Granted, sacrificing your land is a good way to descend in a turn, but I don't think we're going to have that much trouble with all the dredge and other stuff we're going to be running. Speaking of dredge, we have a Jackmore Salvage. So let's cut 2 lands, go down to 36 for right now. Later on, we might end up cutting the mana lands, honestly. Actually, I think we could just do that now. Let's go ahead and cut Soulstone Sanctuary. We definitely don't need that. We've got Field of the Dead. Our commander's going to be making plenty of creatures for us. And now I'm going to go through, and what I like to do with after I've assembled a huge pile of cards to sort through is to kind of section them out into what role they play within the deck. So we'll set it up with like removal, card draw, creatures that are on theme. So anything that's going to help us descend, it's going to be all in one big pile. Like Carrion Feeder, descending, sacrificing a creature for free. It's always good. Free sack outlets. We have a Dreadhound. This guy is actually going to be pretty boss, not going to lie. He's an alternative win. Specifically, he says when he enters the battlefield, you mill 3 cards. Helps us descend. And then also, whenever a creature dies or a creature is put into a graveyard from a library, each opponent loses 1 life. So with something like Hermit Druid, we're going to mill our whole deck in 1 turn. This guy's going to pretty much kill the board for us. So, very nice. Oh, also, because descending is specifically when a permanent goes into your graveyard, we're going to be limiting ourselves on instants and sorceries so we get the most out of our commander. So I think I'm just going to pile up all the instants and sorceries in 1 pile and call it good from there. Also, running things that shuffle. So I don't actually own a real Ulamog or a Kozilek because I'm broke. So I got a couple proxies, but these are going to shuffle our graveyard into our library, so we can continue to descend. See, even sorting through, reading cards, you can kind of see what's going to line up with what you want to do. Ramanop Excavator lets you play lands from your graveyard. I mean, it's not bad, especially in a deck where we're going to be milling ourselves a lot, and if we don't have a land in our hand to play, it's good, but it just seems like it might not do enough on its own. I mean, being a 2/3 body for 3, I don't know. I'm not sold on it yet, but we'll leave it in for right now. Same with Seedborn Muse. I don't think there's really any reason to run a Seedborn Muse in a deck like this. I think it was just in the pile, so I put it off. I think this one I'm actually going to cut right away. So there's not really anything we're doing here that could use it. At least not effectively. And, you know, if you just run a bunch of creatures that are scary, you're going to get targeted right away. And you're going to get blown out of the water. So that's something we want to avoid. Something I also like to include in my decks is something that might not be on theme, but like something we can do if we end up with a bunch of mana and nothing else. Ant Queen is a great mana dump. 2 mana, make a 1/1 insect. Pretty simple, but also pretty effective if you have upwards of 20-ish mana. Another game ender, Beastmaster Ascension, just in case. I mean, it might be a little overkill. I mean, we're going to make 50 1/1s. And what's the difference between 50 1/1s and 50 6/6s? Yeah, we'll keep it in for now. What do we do? We're going with Ant Queen. Landfall, make a Saproling, which does trigger our commander, so it'll make him bigger. That's good. Not sold on this yet. In fact, actually, we're almost actively not doing a landfall thing because we don't have a lot of instants and sorceries, and there's not a ton of creatures that can do that. Bootlegger Stash, kind of also in the same vein, lets our lands tap to create a treasure token, which is pretty cool, but it doesn't. The tokens going to the graveyard don't trigger Descend. It has to be a non-token permanent. So I think actually that one's cuttable right away too. Primal Surge in a deck that is mostly permanents, I think is going to be really good. Exile the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you can put it on the battlefield. If you do, repeat this process. So we can just put our whole deck into play potentially. So Wood Elves is actually going to be a pretty good ramp for us because it searches for a forest card and you put it into play. So it doesn't have to be a basic forest. So, and some of the lands here are dual types. So I mean, Wizards has been creating some non-basic forests. Sap Sea Forest, a couple of the duals, Woodland Chasm, Haunted Mire, those are all forests as well. And there's only a couple of them. Overgrown Tomb, Bayou can grab, obviously. So it has plenty of targets that aren't just the one basic forest that's in the deck. So that's, I think that's keepable as well. Essence Warden. It's another one of those that doesn't necessarily fit the deck, but the fact that we're going to be making a buttload of creatures, it's going to gain us life, and that's going to keep us in the game longer, just in case we kind of get targeted at some point and need to gain a couple life to stay in the game. Hermit Druid. This one, definitely keep. Card's great. It's going to be fantastic. Stitcher Supplier, just as good. Anything that has Dredge on it, I picked up. Stinkweed Imp, definitely one of them. Golgari Grave Troll, Golgari Thug, all great. Akawali the Seething Tower is just a beater, which I don't really care about. I think I'm going to cut him for now. Ooh, that's actually really good. Honest Rutstein. When he enters the battlefield, you return target creature card from a graveyard to your hand. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So not only is it ramp, it gets us a creature back. So put it in the ramp section. Gaia's Blessing. So we're going to have 3 cards that'll shuffle our graveyard into our library when they hit. Gaia's Blessing is the third one. Death Reap Ritual. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. So I mean, we can finagle this to draw us 4 cards in a turn cycle. Pretty good there. Worm Harvest. Holy smokes! I think this one's an auto include. You make a 1/1 black and green worm creature token for each land card in your graveyard, and it has retrace. So we can discard a land card and pay its other cost and cast this out of our graveyard. So if you've got a graveyard stock full of whatever and nothing to shuffle it, I mean, this is going to make us a buttload of worm tokens. Sir Conrad, disgusting. Whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. Okay. Pretty good. We're going to be milling our deck. This is also another win con, kind of like with Dreadhound. Grave Pact. Whenever a creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each other player sacrifices a creature. We got a lot of 1/1s. We might be crashing in with 1/1s, blocking with 1/1s. This will deter a lot of people from attacking us if we have 4 or 5 1/1s. Or entice our opponents to attack us, and we can block and then sack out the other opponents. Also good. Good way to... what's the word I'm looking for? Politic. Good card to politic with if you have a bunch of 1/1s. Discipline of Grizzlebrand is a 1-mana sack outlet, which I'm not huge on. I mean, it's okay if we're sacking large creatures because you gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. As just a sack outlet, I'm not sure it's what we're looking for. So I think we're going to cut it. Same with Blood Artist. Whenever another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. You know, Commander's got 4 players. Target player's not as great. So we'll throw it out. Blasphemous Edict, I think, is going to be really good for us. Each player sacrifices 13 creatures of their choice. We should hopefully have way more than 13 creatures. Alright, so we got everything separated out. First thing I always like to work with is ramp. Let's figure out what we're going to be looking at with mana. That's why I started with lands. That's why we're going to start with ramp. So we've got a lot of options, a lot of permanent options. Let's pull out what's doing double duty. Honest Rutstein, doing pretty good. Milkin is also going to be great. Mill a card and make a mana. That's what we want. What else is going to be grabbing mana of any color? Birds. Utopia Sprawl, I think, is probably going to be a cut because it only enchants a forest. I think we only have 4 or 5 of them in the deck. So getting this stuck onto a land is probably not very likely. So I think that's a cut, which sucks cutting 1 mana ramp, but we have a ton of them because we're in green and we have all these stupid elves that tap for mana. That's the wrong card. Treasure. Mana Reflection is just gross. Belladross. It's great. I don't know. I shouldn't have put Belladross with the ramp either. I mean, it's 4/4 flyer for 7, which is a lot for a little, but the rest of it is just gross. Oh my gosh, it's at each upkeep. You make a 1/1 pest. Gross. Alright, we might go in the Hatemakers instead. Alright, I mean, I think that's good. We've pulled out plenty of cards. Specifically, another thing with the Thought Vessel, gives us no maximum hand size, so if we do end up drawing a bunch of cards, we can't discard them, which discarding cards would also trigger our descent, right? So that's something that we want to pay attention to as well. And let's see what we got here. Usually in a typical deck, I want to run anywhere between 8 to 12 pieces of ramp, depending on what we're doing. The fact that our ramp is not land ramp, most of it's going to be creature and artifact based. I think running a little bit extra is probably a good idea. 15, I mean, without the 1-drop elves, I think we should definitely include the birds. And we want to toss in another elf. Honest Rutstein's pulling double duty, so is Milkin. Deathrite Shaman's going to be able to exile things out of our opponent's graveyards, which is good. Ours, I mean, I would like to not, but we can. It's not necessarily ramp either, just because that's not necessarily its individual purpose. Some of these only let us ramp if we have tokens in play, like the Bright Cat Badger. Circle of Dreams Druid is only going to be good if we have other creatures. Mana Reflection is 6 mana, so it's kind of a late game thing. Actually, might not even need Mana Reflection, honestly. I really don't think this deck is going to take that much mana, but I could be wrong. Let's put it off to the side for now. So I think we can add in 2 of these guys. Let's throw in the Finhorn Elves because it's foil, and the Llanowar Elves because, you know, it's OG. In 17, holy smokes, that's okay. So 17 pieces of ramp. I think we had 36 lands. I think we can cut some of these lands. Okay, let's see, what lands should we cut? We want to keep our forest. Cindersap Forest is a forest, so we want to keep it around. I mean, Golgari, Gilgate. I mean, let's kind of look at our single color here. Shove Engraver on top of your library. That's not a bad one. Bajuka Bog's always great. Nuking someone's graveyard is brutal. It's gonna suck if it happens to us, but hey, that's the name of the game, right? Tainted Wood, only tapping for colored mana when you control a swamp, I think is okay to cut as well. We don't have a ton, and I mean, I could just cut another land that only makes, I guess, Rogue's Passage could also probably be cut, and Thespian Stage isn't going to do us much unless we're copying the Field of the Dead or the High Market. These can all get cut, I think. Let's see, how many lands does that leave us with? 30, 31. So we're actually kind of low in land now, but we do have 17 pieces of ramp. 31 is pretty low for land count, in my opinion, for Commander. I think 33 is probably the minimum that I would ever run anymore. So what should we add back in? Let's slap in, I'm going to slap in Tainted Wood and Thespian Stage. We're down to 33 lands, and we have 17 pieces of ramp. That puts us at an even 50, which I also like. So, slap those in, slap that in, boom, 50 cards. We got half the deck done. Easy peasy, lemon squeeze. The next thing I always want to look at after lands and ramp is the main thing that we're going to be doing in the deck, which is descending. I actually didn't grab as many cards as I thought that are going to help us descend, but let's go through them. Overlord of Baelmerk, which I think is also a pretty excellent card. He's kind of expensive. Granted, anything I have that's expensive is usually something that I pulled out of a pack, not something I bought. I'm broke as hell. Golgari Thug and Golgari Grave Troll. These ones, I'm going to put them in the 0 mana because I don't really care about casting them ever. All I want them to do is be in my graveyard. Same with Stinkweed Imp. Anything with Dredge, I would rather just be in my graveyard. I don't want to ever play it. Crap, thinking of that, one of our lands is a Dakmor Salvage, which I don't ever want to play and just want to keep in the graveyard or in the deck. So maybe we'll toss a Rogue's Passage back in. Yeah, sure. Great, we did it. Stitcher Supplier, Hermit Druid. Stitcher Supplier, when it enters the battlefield or dies, you mill 3 cards. Great. Hermit Druid's going to be humongous. Pay a green, tap it, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a basic land card. Put that card into your hand. Oh, shoot. I didn't read that card all the way. Crud. Maybe we don't want any basic land cards at all. Crap. Okay, that's fine. We'll just cut those. I'll have to find some more lands. That's fine. We can do that. Scourge Familiar is a free discard outlet that adds mana. I mean, that's great. Sivrist is kind of good. I'm not sure. You tap it, sack another creature and or an artifact. No, sack another creature or an artifact. For each opponent, you mill a card, then return that card from your graveyard to your hand unless that player pays 3 life. That's relevant is potential card draw if somebody lets us put the card back into our hand, but most of the time, if we let our opponents do anything, they are going to take an action that we don't approve of, because that's what our opponents do. So really, it's just tap, sack, and mill 3, which isn't great. I'm going to cut this. Zombie Infestation is a free discard outlet. Discard 2 cards, make a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Awesome. Making tokens, what we want to do. Free discard outlet. Awesome. Get something with Dredge in our hand, pitch it. Boom. Done. And you can do it at instant speed. So if someone's trying to like nuke your graveyard or whatever, you can discard an Eldrazi with the Zombie Infestation and shuffle your graveyard into your library. Alright, Mesmeric Orb. It's great. Whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card. So that's going to descend us, and it's going to mill our opponents at the same time and remove options from their deck. Old Stick Fingers is going to mill us a bunch of creatures specifically. When you cast a spell, you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards, X being part of its mana cost, and put all creature cards revealed this way into your graveyard, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Old Stick Fingers, power, and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. The whole point of our deck is to shuffle our graveyard into our library to keep milling ourselves, so this is just going to die and have a one-shot effect, which I don't really care for, so we're going to mill it. Ditch it, discard it, get out, go away. Underrealm Lich, I think this card's going to be an all-star. If you would draw a card, instead look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put one into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So every time we draw a card, we get to look at 3 cards and then mill 2 of them, essentially. Then you can pay 4 life, and this gains indestructible till end of turn and tap it. So we can keep them around if we need to make them live. It's a weird card. Glad I found a deck for it. Deadbridge Chant also is going to be cool, I hope. Enters the battlefield, put the top 10 cards of your library into your graveyard. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose a card at random in your graveyard. If it's a creature card, you put it into the battlefield, otherwise put it in your hand. Now, this, I think, right away is going to be good for the mill 10 part. It's going to descend us 10, hopefully, with Mycotyrant out, and it can put a random creature back into play. But we're going to be shuffling our graveyard into our library and having those free discard outlets. So what we can do potentially is on our upkeep, if we don't have anything in our graveyard, we've shuffled it back in and we have a free discard outlet like Zombie Infestation. We can discard those 2 cards, and one of them being a creature, and hopefully hit it off the Deadbridge Chant and then just get a free reanimation. Not a bad option. Or even like Wild Mongrel or Carrion Feeder. No, Carrion Feeder's a sack outlet. Wild Mongrel is a free discard outlet, and it just pitches 1 card, and he gets +1/+1 and becomes the color of your choice till end turn. That part doesn't really matter, but putting the +1 or discarding the card is going to be great. So you can put like the Deadbridge Chant trigger on the stack, pitch a card. Oh, there's only 1 creature in my graveyard. Only 1 card in my graveyard. Boom, here it is. It's going to be good. So, as of right now, we really only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 cards that contribute to descending specifically. Dang, I don't think that's actually very good. Well, I mean, I guess that's permanents that descend. We haven't gone through our instants and sorceries, but I kind of want to keep those to a little bit more of a minimum. I was thinking of limiting myself to 10. But if all 10 of those help us descend, that's 25 cards that help us descend. That's a whole quarter of the deck. That's not enough, in my opinion. We need to have more. I like to have at least 30-ish cards that'll help us do the thing that we want to do. It helps the deck feel a little more cohesive in that way. Let me see what else I can find. So, with the 15 cards that help us descend, I think that might be enough. With the Hermit Druid, I'm also thinking maybe we should just throw those 2 basics back in. Like, you know, to heck with it. We're not building the most broken, stupid, like, descend deck we could ever possibly build, right? We're just trying to play Commander and have fun. So, I think that's okay, honestly. Let's take these 15... stack them all up. Let's look through the instants and sorceries and see what we've got that can kind of add to that plan of descending. Tragic Slip is removal. Roots of Wisdom is going to mill 3 cards. And then return a land or an elf from your graveyard to your hand. And if you can't, you draw a card. So at the very least, we're going to get another card to replace it with. Commune with the Gods reveals the top 5 cards of your library. You put a creature or an enchantment from among them into your hand and the rest in your graveyard. So potentially just another 5 cards into the graveyard, or 4. Grisly Salvage, kind of the same thing, revealing 5 off your library. You can put a creature or land from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So at minimum, it's a mill 4 or a descend 4. I think that's really all we have for instants and sorceries that are going to help us with that, though. Rescue from the Underworld is going to sack a creature to reanimate 2 creatures, so that'll descend us 1, but that's not really super relevant. you know, 1-off, 2-offs, I'm not really that concerned about. I don't think those really count towards the game plan. Another thing to look for, especially in something where we're trying to limit ourselves, like instants and sorceries, we kind of want our instants and sorceries to either A, be on our game plan, or B, be a silver bullet. So something like Beast Within is going to be phenomenal. I'm pretty sure I have a Beast Within in here. I hope so. If I don't, then I'm screwed. When Grace's Judgment, another like silver bullet. Any number of target opponents, you destroy one non-land permanent that player controls. Just 3 for 1, easy peasy, take care of 3 problem things. Culling Ritual is another ramp. We're going to destroy everything. I actually don't know if this is the right call for this deck. We don't have a lot to do with all of our mana. This is just going to blow up all of our tokens, which will suck. I mean, unless we're in a position, I mean, we'd only fire it off in a position where we're going to take advantage of it, right? And blow up most of our opponent's stuff and then get ahead that way. Maybe after a one-sided blowout, or, you know, our opponent to the left board wipes and then rebuilds, and then our next 2 opponents rebuild, we can kind of cut them off with the Culling Ritual. It's a little more niche that way, but the channel is called Niche Snacks, right? So let's keep it. Noxious Revival, I think, will be good. Anybody trying to snipe something out of our graveyard, we can say no thank you. Return of the Wild Speaker draws cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. Notably, our commander is a non-human creature and gets bigger with the more tokens that he makes. So this is going to be hopefully a big card draw for us. And if not, it can also buff all of our non-humans, which is pretty much everything in the deck. Harmonize, drawing 3 cards off of a sorcery isn't terrible. Primal Surge, potentially. Not sure if we'll actually run it or not. Genesis Wave is going to be huge. Maybe we'll run Genesis Wave instead of Primal Surge. They'll kind of be doing the same thing. We'll cut the Primal Surge. Gaze of Granite, also a good board wipe. It's a real board wipe. Destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less, so we're going to scour the field. Taste of Death. I don't know. I've wanted to find a home for this card for a while. Each player sacrifices 3 creatures. You create 3 food tokens. 6 mana though. For us, our 3 creatures obviously are going to be easy to sacrifice because we're going to have a bunch of tokens. Is 3 food tokens really worth 6 mana? That's the real question. I don't think so. I think Taste of Death is just a bad card. If it costs a little less, maybe 3, that would be better. Final Push being a 1 mana kill something, nah, I don't think it's very good. Not for regular commander. Maybe if we were trying to make CEDH or something, but we're not. Siphon Mind, another 4 mana draw 3, potentially, as long as we have 3 opponents, which we usually do. It's not bad. Also makes them discard a card, which isn't terrible. Witherbloom Command. Oh, that one is target player mills 3 cards, so this will help us descend. Didn't even think about that. Put a land from your graveyard into your hand. Oh, sweet. So it even gets us lands back. You can destroy a non-creature non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. Target creature gets -3/-1. Target opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. That part's not really that relevant, but it could be. But milling 3 cards is relevant. And then Gerard's Orders. Search your library for up to 2 creature cards, reveal them, put 1 into your hand, the other into your graveyard, shuffle your library. And this is also not, you know, set in stone, right? All of this is just kind of editing down the pile to a smaller pile that we're going to then edit down into another smaller pile and keep going until we have a coherent deck. Now let's take a look at the cards we pulled that are kind of alternative ways without our commander to potentially win. I think Dreadhound is a definite auto-include. Mirkwood Bats, almost a win more for creating and sacrificing tokens. So we're going to be creating a lot of tokens that we are hopefully going to be creatures to attack with. So I'm not sure if I really want that in the deck. Kind of same thing with Nadir's Nightblade. Whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. I'd rather have Zulaport Cutthroat and Sir Conrad. Yeah, definitely Sir Conrad because he'll trigger off milling. and that's really what we want. These are token based. These are based off of creatures dying specifically. Honestly, I think we can cut all 4 of these, but maybe keep 1 of each. Let's keep the cheaper one. No, let's keep the Mirkwood Bats and the Zulaport Cutthroat, and then we'll edit out these 2. We don't really need them. Alright, let's look at card draw and tutors. We got a Runescar Demon, Izoni Thousand Eyes. Makes a 1/1 black and green insect creature token for each creature in your graveyard when it enters. And you can sack another creature, gain a life, and draw a card. That's relevant. Keep that around. Moldvine Reclamation, we kind of already talked about this. Got to be careful because it's not a May and you have to draw the card. So it's got a lot of potential. Throw it out. Babala Saga. I want to like Babala Saga, but I think she's just not great. So you sacrifice up to 3 permanents, and if there are 3 or more card types among the sacrificed permanents, each opponent loses 3 life, you gain 3 life, and you draw 3 cards. Which all seems really good until you get to the point where you're like, I can sack a land and a creature, and I don't have a 3rd permanent type. Now, granted, you can just tap it and sack 3 permanents, which isn't nothing. You won't get the other effect if they didn't have the 3 different permanent types, but it's a way to just have a sack outlet for 3 things. But it's a tap ability. I think we don't need a Babala Saga. Get out of here. Wardens of the Cycle. Beginning of your end step, if a creature died, you can draw a card and lose a life, or you gain 2 life. It's only 1 card a turn. Not sure how relevant that'll be. I would rather have the Death Reap Ritual and the Moldervine Reclamation over the Wardens of the Cycle, but we'll keep it in for now just in case. Ravenous Squirrel kind of sits in the same place as Izoni. It doesn't make tokens, but you can pay mana to sack the creatures that we're going to make to gain life and draw a card. And it only costs 1 mana. Garruk is going to kind of fill the same role as his namesake in sorceries. So -3 to draw cards equals to the greatest power among creatures you control, where the sorcery draws cards equals to the greatest power of non-humans. Kind of the same thing for us right now. So he has potential to draw a lot of cards or make more tokens, which is also relevant for us. Mulvanni Beast Tracker, which when it enters, you search your library for a creature card with Death Touch, Hexproof, Reach, or Trample, reveal it, shuffle your library, put that card on top of it. I don't think that's relevant enough for us. This is another card that I always have really liked and never really found a decent home for it. I think we can ditch it. Phyrexian Arena, it's free card draw every turn. Skull Clamp's going to kill all of our 1/1s and draw us a buttload of cards. Smothering Abomination, I think, is not very good. Beginning of your upkeep, you sack a creature, and then whenever you sack a creature, you draw a card. Flying and Devoid. It's 4/3 for 4 mana. No. We'll cut it. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just card draw, card advantage stuff. These, I think, at least these 3 of the Ulamog, Kozilek, and Gaia's Blessing, those are kind of auto-includes. We definitely need those in the deck to shuffle the graveyard back into the library. The Elixir of Immortality also is going to shuffle our graveyard into our library. So we kind of have 4 ways to do that. That's pretty good. Good enough. We've got some more reanimation stuff. Phyrexian Reclamation, I think the card's phenomenal. Eternal Witness is going to return anything from our graveyard to our hand, which is good. I think Golgari Fine Broker. I mean, it costs 2 black and 2 green, which sucks. It's a lot of colored mana pips, and it only returns a permanent from our graveyard to our hand. So I think that's cuttable. Get the heck out of here. Green Warden of Marasa also has Eternal Witness text, but when it dies, it's going to return us a card as well. Now we've got our creature-based removal or permanent-based removal spells. Again, kind of want it to be more Silver Bullet-ish, like Binding of the Old Gods. It destroys a target non-land permanent an opponent controls when it enters and puts the first saga counter on it. It'll also ramp us a forest, which is good. Creature control can get Death Touch till end turn. Could be good if we have a bunch of 1/1s. It's going to make blocking really, really bad. Tragic Banshee is Tragic Slip on a creature, but for 5 mana, which is a lot, especially when Tragic Slip is 1 mana and an instant. So let's get that crap out of here. We don't need that. Plague Crafter along with Fleshbag Marauder are 2 similar cards. Not always super relevant. Rex Age, just great. Same with Manglehorn. Manglehorn is going to blow up an artifact and then make our opponent's artifacts enter the battlefield tapped. So really good, especially if someone's trying to go off with treasure tokens or whatever. Foundation Breaker I think will also be good with that evoke cost. Same thing with Shriekmaw. We'll be able to evoke them in, have them kill something, and then they go to the graveyard, which is Descending. And we have this Acidic Slime, which destroys an artifact, enchantment, or land. And having that or land part, I think, at the end makes it totally worth it, because not enough things destroy a land. And sometimes we just need to get rid of a damn land. And I know I cut Strip Mine and Tectonic Edge earlier, but I don't think lands are going to be super relevant. But being able to search out an Acidic Slime if I need it with like Gerard's Orders, and then play it like at a time when someone's got, you know, a Glacial Chasm in play and I can't attack them when I need to, that's relevant. We've got Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots to protect our Mycotyrant when we need to. Belladros is just good. Prosperous Innkeeper and Essence Warden are going to save us some life. Path of Discovery I think is going to be really gross. I want to run Tendershoot Dryad and Ant Queen. Grave Pact is good if we've got a lot of creatures out. Kind of deters people from attacking us. Creekwood Liege is going to make dudes on its own. And we've got Calculating Lich, Sport Crown Thallid, Scavenging Ooze, and Beastmaster Ascension, which I feel like Calculating Lich, Sport Crown Thallid, and Beastmaster Ascension kind of all fill the same role of win more. I've seen Beastmaster Ascension too much. Lots of people play that card, especially in token strategies. It's very, very strong, I know that, but it's kind of boring. Sport Crown Thallid doesn't advance our board state. It doesn't do anything but buff our fungus and saprolines. It'll buff our commander. He is a fungus. We're going to be making fungus with him as well. Fungi. Nah. Calculating Lich, I might keep around. Whenever a creature attacks one of your opponents, that player loses 1 life. That's a 5/5 for 6. It's just a lot of mana for not a lot of oomph when it first hits, unless we're ready to just nuke the board, in which case we're probably going to just kill him anyway. Nah, I'm going to keep it. I've never seen anybody play it, and that's another relevant reason for me to play it. Scavenging Ooze is a good card. It says pay 1 green, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Scavenging Ooze and you gain 1 life. Relevant too, somebody could steal our Scavenging Ooze from us and destroy our graveyard with it. It's a reason not to run it potentially. But I think we're going to be kind of tight on spaces. Just going to have to edit this down a little bit to get to 50. So let's just cut it now and save us some heartbreak later. Let's check our lands. What are we at? We're down to 34 lands, but we've got 2 cycle lands. I think it's fine. 17 pieces of ramp, so that's 51 cards. I was wrong earlier. Beans. Well, I think that means we can actually ditch another land, which I'm okay with. Let's get down to 33. I'm gonna play it fast and loose. I think Road's Passage. Get that crap out of here. We don't need that. Oh god, it could make our huge Mycotyrant beat the shit out of someone though. Nah, we can cut one of our ramp pieces. Let's cut out this Land of War Elves, because he's not foil. So that is 50. We've got 51, so we have 49 slots. We gotta edit that pile down to 49 cards. Let's see how many we have. 78 cards. Poop. And that's not to say we won't cut any more of this ramp land combo. So one thing I like to do also while I'm building a deck is kind of put the cards that I have cemented in stone, like these are going in the deck for sure, put them in sleeves. So we'll sleeve them up a little bit early. Got all of our lands sleeved up. Cards that are 100% going in the deck. These. I think for sure we need to pull out everything that lets us self-mill. There's 25 there. So definitely running Skull Clamp. I know it's a little tacky, I guess. And, you know, everybody's seen a Skull Clamp go off, but we're making a bunch of 1/1s with our commander and from other places. Like, it's just too good to not draw 2 cards for 1 mana whenever we want, right? Ravenous Squirrel, it's good. I don't know if I really want to run it or not, though. I really want to like Wardens of the Cycle, but I keep hemming and hawing about it every time we see it. I think it's just going to get cut. Get out of here, dude. We don't need you. Death Reef Ritual, I'm going to draw us 4 cards turn cycle at the best of times. The worst of times, it's only going to draw us 1, but that's okay. Well, I guess worst of times, you can draw us 0. Same with the Molder Vine Reclamation. I'm kind of scared to run this card, to be honest with you, because I can just imagine going too ham and losing, but we got to be smart about it. 7 mana tutor. I try to stick to the philosophy of draw over tutor, but a 7 mana tutor on a 6/6 body, it's reanimatable. Like, it's okay. We can run that. I'm okay with that. Izoni, I think, is definitely playable. And then we got Garrook, which will hopefully draw us some more cards. So we've got a kind of more expensive card draw. We can have card draw based around having things to sacrifice to it with the Skull Clamp, the Ravenous Squirrel, and Izoni. Izoni, granted, makes things to sacrifice, so that's good. Phyrexian Arena is just going to guarantee us an extra card every turn. I think this is pretty good, honestly. We only have 8 cards here, but I think there's some other draw kind of tied up in other places too that we can run. So this, I think 8 for sure. It's going to be hard to cut anything out of this now, especially trying to cut card draws. You're just kind of asking to lose there. Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves, they're good. They help protect our commander, which is really what we want to be doing. We don't want him to catch us stray, I don't know, what, swords to plowshares or something. We're not beholden to our commander in this deck either, which I really like, especially with the Dreadhound and the Sir Conrad. Both of those are pretty relevant cards that we can still kind of churn through our deck with other things. I mean, we're not going to be making the 1/1s, but they're going to be dealing damage to our opponents. That's another way to kill it. So we're not super beholden to the Mycotyrant for killing our opponents, which kind of makes me want to cut at least one of these. And the worst of the two is obviously Swiftfoot Boots. So let's cut Swiftfoot Boots, keep Lightning Greaves around for now. Beledros, I think, is just a really good card. It's going to make us dudes. It's going to untap our lands. I think that's pretty damn good. Calculating Lich is also kind of another one of those things where we might, I don't know. I think I'm going to cut Calculating Lich. I don't think it's relevant enough. It doesn't advance our board state. It costs 6 mana. It's just too much. Ant Queen is going to be another token generator. Same with Tendershoot Dryad. Grave Pact is going to help keep our opponent's boards clear, or at least deter them from attacking us with a bunch of 1/1s, or even blocking our 1/1s. Path of Discovery, I think, is going to be a sleeper, honestly. Like, it's going to elevate the number of times that we descended in a turn. Oh, maybe not, because it only triggers at the beginning of the end step. Hold on, let me think that through. So whenever your creature you control enters, it explores. So if this is making creatures and then triggering the Path of Discovery, the stuff that I am going to then put into the graveyard is not going to trigger the Mycotyrant because we're past the beginning of our end step. Actually, I don't think we want this. Well, there's other things that can make tokens that'll help us descend as well. It'll help us churn through the deck as well and kind of put what we want on top of the library, unless we're shuffling the graveyard again from whatever we've put into the graveyard. I'm going to keep it off to the side. Same with Creekwood Leech, it makes a dude. Essence Warden is going to help us gain some life. Same with Prosperous Innkeeper, they basically are the same card, except for the Prosperous Innkeeper also makes a treasure token when it enters. Oh, actually the Essence Warden is going to gain us life off our opponents as well. Ooh, also relevant. because Prosperous Innkeeper is when a creature enters the battlefield under your control, and the Essence Warden is whenever a creature enters the battlefield, period. Let's keep the Essence Warden. We'll put the Prosperous Innkeeper off to the side. Fleshbag Marauder and Platecrafter, we already kind of talked about those. They're decent. I don't think they fit our deck. They're not really doing what we want to do. Acidic Slime, also kind of talked about it. Silver Bullet can hit the lands if we need to. I think having that included is good. The Shriekmaw and the Foundation Breaker, those are both great removal spells. Manglehorn and Rex Sage. With the Acidic Slime and the Foundation Breaker, you may only want one of these guys. I think the Manglehorn is going to be more of a problem for our opponents, but we'll put the Rex Sage over here just in case we have an extra slot for it or we feel like we need it. Phyrexian Reclamation, auto include wherever it's going in the deck, guaranteed. I love that card, it's really good. Life and Death, I've definitely lost to this card and I've won because of this card. It reanimates a creature from your graveyard and you lose life equal to its converted mana cost, so it's a reanimate but for 2 mana. And the life part, until end of turn, all lands you control are 1/1 creatures that are still lands. So it's got a lot of flexibility, and you can either reanimate a creature out of our graveyard, which, as you know, we're already going to have a lot of creatures in our graveyard, or we can turn all of our lands into 1/1s that are still lands, but it's kind of like a surprise alpha strike. Card's great, I love it. Put it in the maybe pile. Drad's Orders, also another great tutor that's going to be able to go grab our, Acidic Slime when we need it. It only grabs creature cards, so keep that in mind. Only gets creature cards. I think Genesis Wave is going to be disgusting. Beast Within also is going to be our Silver Bullet removal spell. Hits any permanent. Same with Gaze of Granite. If we get wiped or something, having a Gaze of Granite to fire back. Blasphemous Edict. I really like this card. I think we're going to have the 13 things to sacrifice to it to not get hosed by it, and then just, it's going to turn into an asymmetric board wipe for us. And Grease's Judgment and Worm Harvest, I think, are auto includes for us. Squirming Emergence. It can return to the battlefield target non-land permanent card in your graveyard, mana value less than or equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Okay, so we have to have lots of permanents in our graveyard. Well, not lots, at least like 5-ish to get something back that's relevant, which we'll probably have. But I have a feeling this will sit in our hand and be dead. And that's not what I want. Siphon Mind and Harmonize are both 4 mana draw 3s, which isn't bad at all, especially in green-black. Let's cut these. What are we down to now? Yeah, the Ravenous Squirrel I think we can cut. Oh yeah, especially since we're putting a little more draw in. I'm not a huge fan of the Ravenous Squirrel. The potential cuts would be Zulaport Cutthroat and the Mirkwood Bats. I think those are the two that I was kind of hemming and hawing about earlier. But the rest of that I think needs to stay in the deck. So let's see where we're at in the for sure pile that we have so far. We're at 48 cards. And I believe, 48. That includes the ramp. Oh god, my math's all fucked up. We have 33. 48 and 33 is 81? 48, 33, yeah, 81. So we have 19 slots left. Let's see what we can do with that. So these are kind of on the chopping block. These I would like to include. Same with Genesis Wave. I think Genesis Wave is going to be gross. When I kind of get down to 20-ish cards, I kind of like to make, little lines of 5 so to count everything out. So we've got 5 here. We definitely need some card draw. Let's not neglect that. So we've got those 2, and I think, where did the other one go? Turn to the Wild Speaker and Shamanic Revelation. I don't know if we need Shamanic Revelation. Draw a card for each creature you control. I mean, that could get out of hand quickly. Granted, Return to the Wild Speaker is also going to be doing the same relevant thing with our commander, but it'll be a little bit less, and it also has the ability to pump all of our creatures. This will gain me 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater, but we're making 1/1s, so probably not as relevant. I think it's okay to cut the Shamanic Revelation. We've got enough other card draw. That being said, we want the E-Witness to get stuff back. I think the Green Warden will also get us the stuff back. So there's 10 of the 19. Worm Harvest, I've talked it up too much to leave it out of the deck. Board Wipes with Gaze of Granite and Blasphemous Edict. Beast Within is so good. I think Draw's Orders is relevant enough because it's going to get us 2 creatures. We'll see how it goes. I think this Mirkwood Bats and Zulaport Cutthroat are just going to get cut because this stuff is more interesting to me. Shriekmaw and the Foundation Breaker. And we got 2 slots left. What do we want? Path of Discovery because I'm curious about it and I've never seen anybody play it and I want to see how it works in this deck. I mean, I think I've talked about every single card in this pile and why it's good and why I like it. I think we can cut Prosperous Innkeeper because we've got the Essence Warden here. Lightning Greaves will keep the Mycotyrant alive, potentially. I'm not super worried about that. We kind of talked about it earlier, so Lightning Greaves I think can go. Our Elixir of Immortality is going to give us our Shuffle effect. We've got 3 in the deck so far. I think the answer is Life and Death. It does enough different things. Alright, leave the rest of this out. Alright, we have a deck. I don't really need to count it. I've already counted out the sleeves, so I know I have 100 sleeves. So if I am short a sleeve, then we'll go back and count a bunch of everything. And if I'm short, we'll go back, we'll count the whole deck, and we'll find the 1 card or 2 that can be cut. Now, do I think this is going to be the most powerful Mycotyrant deck ever? No, probably not. But that's, again, not my goal. When I make a commander deck, I want to try to make something that I enjoy playing and that somebody might enjoy playing against. Whether that means they have to kind of think a little different with how they play, or maybe, you know, I do something that's interesting or affects the board in a way that is not something that they've seen before. And that's usually my goal when it comes to building a deck. Not necessarily to win, but to have an impact. Ooh, we counted right. And let's goldfish a couple hands too, so we can kind of get a feel for the deck. And I mean, obviously goldfishing isn't going to show us everything, especially when we're dealing with removal or any kind of interaction. I mean, we just kind of have to pretend with the goldfish, right? But it does kind of show us how the deck will flow, and if there's any kind of hiccups, they'll come out in goldfishing. You'll have to goldfish quite a bit, but I'm only going to do 1, maybe 2 hands. We'll see how it goes. Let's draw 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow, that's actually not terrible. Well, oh, hold on. Never mind. This is a trick hand for sure. So we've got a Gaia's Cradle, no creatures to play it off of, a Tainted Wood, which only makes colored mana if we have a swamp, which we don't, and a High Market. Those are our 3 lands. Now we do have a Golgari Signet. We've got a Hermit Druid, an Ewit, and a Zombie Infestation. This is a bit of a trick hand. I think it's actually keepable because of the Golgari Signet. Unless we have some jerk who's going to blow it up right in the beginning, like, this is a keepable 7 right off the top. And then let's just play it out and I'll kind of show what I'm talking about. So first turn we're going to draw a Zoni, not terrible. Play a land. Draw for the second turn. Oh, gross. We got an Ancient Tomb. Hello. That makes this turn even better. So we're going to play the Ancient Tomb. Tap it for 2 mana. We'll take 2 damage. We'll play the Golgari Signet. And then use the High Market here to make 2 mana and play the Hermit Druid. Then we'll untap. Draw. Also not a terrible draw. Sapstep Forest. Or Sapseep Forest. But I think we play the Gaia's Cradle because it makes green mana, and we want to do 2 damage here, 3 for the Mycotyrant, And then we have the Gaia's Cradle for 2 green mana, and we can use the Druid. And that's going to mill us until we hit a basic land, right? Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a basic land card. Put that card into your hand, and all the cards reveal this way into your graveyard. So there's only 2 basics in the deck. So let's reveal until we hit a basic land. Forest. 27, 28, 29. So we have 29 Descends on the Mycotyrant, and then we're going to shuffle our graveyard into our library because of the Ulamog. But we've descended 29 times this turn, which is pretty cool on turn 3. So I'm going to end my turn, and I'm going to make 29 1/1 fungus creature tokens. Call this 29. And then that forest goes into my hand. And I will pass the turn. Untap. Keep draw. We can go ahead and just play this forest, I guess. Now our Gaia's Cradle taps for 31 mana. Which, yeah, gross. Actually, hold on. We're not going to play this. So yeah, now we'll do a Hermit Druid. We'll go get the other basic land. Then we can play a Swamp. And then we'll have access to 2 black mana. So then we can play Izoni. And that'll get us some stuff. And then eventually we can start sacking things off to the Izoni to draw cards and kind of get back into it that way. So, I mean, yeah, I think this flows pretty good already. I mean, that was a disgusting hand with the Hermit Druid already. But kind of gives us an idea of how the deck will play out. Oh yeah, I will also riffle shuffle my cards. I don't really give a shit. These are cards they're meant to be played with, in my opinion. Yeah, some of them are worth money, but who gives a shit? Give it a good cut. Alright, what do we got here? Uh-oh. That's a bad 5. I don't think any 2 cards are going to make up for that. Yeah, I think we pitched that hand. So, for the sake of brevity, what I'm going to do is actually just take these 7, toss them on the bottom, and draw a whole new 7. Let's see what we get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ooh, that's not terrible. The Ancient Tomb, we won't be able to play our commander right away, but that's okay. We're not looking to just go bonkers. If we had a way to discard the Golgari Grave Troll, that would be the best, but we don't. We could get it with the Gerard's Ores if we find another mana. We've got the Skull Clamp if we go ham on the Mycotyrant to draw us more cards. Brightcat Badger will make 2 Saprolings for 3, so we can do that on turn 2. We play the Woodland Cemetery first. And then if we can draw another land, then we can cast the Brightcat Badger. Then we've also got Jihara to draw us to make us mana off of tokens. So I guess we don't even have to cast the Brightcat Badger. We can just cast the Jihara. Okay, yeah. Let's try this hand. We'll see what happens. Draw 1. Commune with the Gods. Not bad. Player land tapped. Another card. Ooh, Sapseep Forest. We are, I think, still on the game plan of playing the Ancient Tomb, taking 2 damage, to put Brightcat Badger on an adventure and make 2 1/1 Saprolings, which is going to be that. Untap. But we've at least got a landfall. Oh, we got 2 landfalls. Hell yeah. Let's play the Dark Moss Bridge for sure. And then pay 3 mana for Jihara. So these can tap for mana now, which is pretty good. So what we're going to do is actually tap both of them for green and use one of it to cast Skull Clamp and the other one to equip one of these guys to draw 2 cards. Then we'll untap, draw Golgari Guildgate, yellow, Golgari Guildgate, or the Sapseep Forest. I think we'll play the Guildgate. That's our land for the turn. Oh, this guy's untapped. What we're going to want to do is tap this guy for a green, black, 2 colorless. I'll have 1 colorless floating to cast the Mycotyrant. with our floating colorless. Oh, and then we've got this here. So we've got 2 mana. So let's use our floating colorless and the Woodland Cemetery for green to commune with the gods. So we're going to reveal the top 5 cards of our library. We can put a creature and enchantment from among them into our hand and the rest into our graveyard. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll put a creature from among them, which is a Finhorn Elves, into our hand, and the rest are going to go into our graveyard, including a Kozilek. But that is also going to descend us twice, so these will get shuffled in. And we are going to make 2 dudes on our end step. And we don't have anything else to do this turn, so we are going to end our turn. Alright, a couple shuffles, cut ourselves, and then we'll go to untap. That. Draw for the turn. Ooh, return the Wild Speaker. So right now this guy is a 3/3 4/4 because this is a Saproline. Because it came from the Bright Cat Badger. So 4 mana to draw, or 5 mana to draw 4 cards isn't bad, but it can be better. So now what I'm thinking is we want to find a way to discard this Golgari Grave Troll because Dredge 6 is really good. So potentially we can draw its orders and go find something that can give us a free discard outlet, like Wild Mongrel or what the flip. There's another card that does it too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's in there. So I'm thinking draw its orders potentially to go grab a free discard outlet, or casting the Carrion Feeder and then just casting the Golgari Grave Troll to sacrifice it to the Carrion Feeder to put it into our graveyard and then help us dredge more that way. But if we get the discard outlet, then we can discard the Golgari Grave Troll every single fucking time, and we don't ever have to worry about, casting it over and over again to sack it to the Carrion Feeder. It also depends on what our opponents have in play. I mean, we might want to Shriekmaw something. Which I guess we can Shriekmaw and draw its orders in the same turn because we've got access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 mana on turn 5. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm okay with that. I think this deck is pretty good. So I think that's going to be it for this video. If you liked it, give it a like, share, subscribe, I guess, all that stuff. But really the most important part is just show it to your friends. Like if you liked this video, you liked what I'm saying, you like the way I edit decks and that kind of stuff, I plan on doing more things like this, whether it's brewing a deck or making edits to a deck, or just kind of breaking down some of the more interesting decks that I have and kind of showing you guys what my thought process behind the cards that I have in there and why. Just show your friends. That's the most important part. All right, have a good one. Bye.